Imagine a time when the seas were ruled by ruthless pirate kings, feared across the oceans. These pirates weren't just common criminals, they were the leaders of rebellious forces, challenging the very empires that claimed control of the seas. Their names became legends: Blackbeard, Calico Jack, Anne Bonny, Charles Vane, and many others. But as with all powerful rulers, their reigns were destined to come to an end. And it wasn't just defeat that awaited them. It was a gruesome public execution that would mark the end of an era. Pirates were often seen as a necessary evil in the eyes of the authorities. For years, their attacks on merchant ships and the pillaging of wealthy fleets made them both feared and respected. But as the pirates grew in power, their control over the seas began to challenge the very foundations of the nations they preyed upon. The British Empire, which had once turned a blind eye to pirate activity, soon realized that the pirate kings posed a threat that could not be ignored. These pirate kings weren't mere outlaws. They were leaders of vast fleets, some even with their own territories. Their ships, flying the Jolly Roger, became symbols of fear and rebellion. Pirates like Blackbeard and Calico Jack formed alliances, built their own navies, and conducted raids that shook the Caribbean, the Americas, and the waters of Europe. But despite their power, the pirates' days were numbered. The British Navy and other European forces began to target them, slowly dismantling the pirate strongholds. By the early 18th century, the pirate golden age was drawing to a close. The British Empire began a full-scale campaign to rid the seas of piracy. The pirate kings who once ruled over entire regions found themselves in the sights of the British Navy. It was only a matter of time before these infamous leaders would meet their end. One of the most well-known pirate kings to meet a brutal end was Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard. Blackbeard's reign was marked by terror. His ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, struck fear into every vessel it crossed paths with. With his imposing figure, long black beard, and slow, deliberate movements, Blackbeard became an almost mythical figure. But what made him most terrifying was his ruthless nature. He had no qualms about using violence to get what he wanted, and his reputation as a brutal pirate earned him the nickname the Devil of the Sea. Blackbeard's downfall came in 1718. After a fierce battle off the coast of North Carolina, Blackbeard was killed in a bloody confrontation with Lieutenant Robert Maynard. Maynard and his crew had been sent to capture Blackbeard, and after a bloody battle, they succeeded. Blackbeard was shot multiple times and eventually decapitated. His severed head was hung from the bow of Maynard's ship as a grim trophy. But while Blackbeard's death marked the end of one pirate king's reign, it was only the beginning of the end for piracy itself. The British Navy had learned a valuable lesson from their encounter with Blackbeard. They realized that pirate leaders, with their strong personalities and powerful fleets, posed the biggest threat to their control over the seas. It wasn't just about capturing or killing pirates, it was about destroying their leadership, cutting off their head, both literally and figuratively. The executions of other pirate kings followed. Charles Vane, a pirate known for his cruelty, was captured in 1719. Vane had been a fearsome leader, a ruthless pirate who had once been considered one of the most dangerous men on the seas. But after being captured by the British, he was tried and hanged in 1721. His execution sent a powerful message to pirates everywhere. No one, no matter how feared, was beyond the reach of the law. Even the notorious Anne Bonny and Calico Jack didn't escape the brutal hand of justice. Bonny and Jack had led a pirate crew in the Caribbean, raiding ships and terrorizing merchant vessels. They had become infamous for their daring raids and the fact that Bonny, a woman, had risen to such heights in the pirate world. But in 1720, Bonny and Jack were captured. While Jack was hanged, Bonny's fate is less certain. Some say she was imprisoned, while others believe she escaped execution due to her pregnancy. As the British Empire tightened its grip on the Caribbean, pirate kings like Blackbeard and Vane became increasingly isolated. The once thriving pirate havens, such as Nassau in the Bahamas, began to fall under the control of the British. With their leadership dismantled, pirate crews began to break apart. The days of the pirate elite were numbered, and the executions were a stark reminder that no matter how powerful a pirate king might be, they were never beyond the law's reach. The British authorities knew that the key to ending piracy was not just defeating the pirates themselves, but destroying their power structures. By executing pirate leaders, the British sent a clear message that piracy would no longer be tolerated. The execution of these pirate kings wasn't just an act of punishment. It was a deliberate strategy to wipe out piracy at its core. In the aftermath of these executions, piracy continued, but it was never the same. The pirate kings, who had once ruled the seas with impunity, were gone. Their names would go down in history not as conquerors, but as cautionary tales of how power, no matter how great, could be undone by the will of empires and the might of navies. After the brutal executions of notorious pirate kings, the message was clear: piracy would no longer be tolerated. The days of lawlessness on the high seas were coming to an end, and the British Empire was determined to restore order and control. The execution of pirates served not only as punishment, but as a strategy to dismantle the pirate threat at its roots. However, the impact of these executions rippled through the pirate world, leaving behind legacies that would echo for centuries. While the pirate kings like Blackbeard and Charles Vane were eliminated, their influence remained. These men and women were symbols of rebellion figures who had risen from nothing to challenge the world as greatest powers. Their executions may have silenced their individual voices, but they left a larger question lingering in the air. Was piracy truly dead? Despite the executions, piracy did not vanish overnight. In fact, many of the lower-ranking pirates who had once served under these legendary leaders continued their raids. But the allure of being a pirate king faded. The power vacuum left by the death of these pirate leaders led to a more fractured and less organized form of piracy that no longer were pirates able to command large fleets or territories. Instead, piracy became a game of survival with smaller crews and fewer resources. The pirate kingdoms were replaced with scattered bands of pirates who were more vulnerable to capture. The British Navy, however, was relentless. The executions had served as a warning, but now they were on a mission to crush piracy once and for all. Pirate hunters like Woodes Rogers, a former pirate himself, were sent to track down and eliminate any remaining pirate strongholds. The British Empire as focus was shifting from just punishing individual pirates to eliminating the very infrastructure of piracy. One of the key turning points in this battle occurred in Nassau, a pirate haven in the Bahamas. This once thriving pirate stronghold, where men like Blackbeard and Calico Jack had freely walked, was now under siege. In 1718, Woodes Rogers was appointed as the governor of the Bahamas, and his mission was clear: bring order to the chaotic waters of the Caribbean and rid the region of its pirate infestation. His strategy was simple: offer pardons to those who surrendered and punish those who resisted. Under Rogers' leadership, the British Navy began to take control of the Bahamas, forcing many pirates into hiding or surrender. This shift in power marked the end of Nassau as the center of piracy in the Caribbean. No longer could pirates live freely, unchecked by the laws of empires. With Rogers' influence, Nassau became a place where pirates were forced to either comply with British rule or face execution. Despite the British crackdown, not all pirates chose to surrender. Many, like the infamous Stede Bonnet, who had once been a wealthy landowner before turning to piracy, continued to fight. Bonnet's story is a particularly tragic one. Initially, he had joined forces with Blackbeard and his crew, but he soon found himself at odds with a legendary pirate. Bonnet was eventually captured by the British Navy, and despite his previous surrender to the authorities, he was hanged in 1718. His execution highlighted the unforgiving nature of the British Empire, which showed no mercy to even the pirates who had once pledged to lay down their arms. Even after the fall of Nassau, piracy still lingered on the high seas. The Caribbean was still home to pirates, though they had become less organized and more desperate. The decline of the pirate kings did not mean the immediate end of piracy. Rather, it marked the beginning of a new era of smaller, less coordinated pirate bands that still posed a threat to merchant ships. But these pirates, without the leadership of their kings, were ultimately easier to capture and defeat. The British Empire's naval dominance, combined with the loss of centralized pirate leadership, made piracy less of an organized force and more of an occasional nuisance. One pirate who continued to resist British rule was Bartholomew Roberts, known as Black Bart. One of the most successful pirates of the golden age of piracy, unlike many of his counterparts, Roberts managed to evade capture for years. His fleet grew, and he terrorized the waters of the Caribbean, the Americas, and even parts of Africa. Roberts was one of the few pirate kings who continued to operate effectively after the fall of Nassau and the executions of other pirates. His death, however, came in 1722. He was killed during a battle with a British naval vessel off the coast of West Africa. His death marked the last major blow to piracy during the Golden Age. With the death of Roberts, the pirate kings were no longer a viable force. Their legacy lived on, but the pirate elite had been dismantled. The execution of their leaders and the British Navy's dominance on the seas ensured that piracy would no longer be a threat to the world's greatest empires. As the years passed, piracy continued in the Caribbean, but it was no longer the organized, rebellious force that it once was. The era of the pirate kings had come to an end. However, the stories of their reigns lived on in the lore and legends of the sea. The executions of the pirate elite had not just silenced their voices but also shaped the future of piracy, ensuring that future generations would remember the price of defying empires. The fall of the pirate kings serves as a reminder that no matter how powerful one may be, the law always catches up. Pirates, once kings of the sea, became nothing more than criminals who paid the ultimate price for their crimes. In the end, the pirate kings were executed not just for their crimes on the seas, but for challenging the very powers that controlled the world. Pirates like Blackbeard, Charles Vane, Anne Bonny, and Calico Jack have become legendary figures. Their stories, marked by rebellion, bloodshed, and betrayal, continue to captivate our imaginations. However, the brutal executions of these pirate kings were a turning point in history. Their executions were the final chapter in the golden age of piracy, marking the end of an era where pirates ruled the seas. Despite their deaths, their stories live on forever, etched in the annals of history as a testament to the price of defiance. If you found the stories of these pirate kings fascinating, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping tales from history. What do you think? Was the execution of these pirate kings justified, or should they have been allowed to live out their days in peace? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.